The only other Obama administration official to even mention the pocketing of U.S. assets by foreign dictators was Assistant Secretary of Commerce Walter Bastian. Here's what he said. "We have no problem with expropriation, theft by a foreign government, as long as those affected are paid." No problem with theft? And Bastian certainly knows that Americans are not paid fair market value for their holdings. They get whatever Chavez feels like paying that day. Most are not even paid at all. Behind the scenes, Obama administration officials are telling executives not to worry. By being nice to Chavez and not protesting the thefts, they hope that Chavez will eventually see his way clear to pay the American investors something. These Obama wimps are like the kids on the playground who tell the victim not to report the bully to the teacher and not to fight back. "Be nice," they coo, "and he will be nice to you later." Well, it doesn't work in the schoolyard, and it doesn't work in foreign affairs. Obama's approach to Latin America is the opposite of Teddy Roosevelt's. Obama's motto, speak softly and carry no stick. Guess what? It hasn't worked. ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips, two big energy companies with millions of American investors, gave up on Obama. They have decided to go to the World Bank Center for Settlements of Investment Disputes. They are seeking tens of billions of dollars in relief for their lost oil facilities in Venezuela. It will take years before they even get a hearing, and even if they win, Venezuela can always ignore the World Bank. When Chavez isn't stealing from Americans, he is impoverishing his own people. That's why they keep sneaking across our borders. Everyone knew that Chavez's takeovers of private industry would make Venezuela poorer, hungrier, and less democratic. Today, Venezuela has the highest inflation rate in South America. Once a food exporter, Venezuela now has to import more than 70% of its food, and shortages are common. The little food available is at the end of the long line at a government-controlled store. Crooked government bureaucrats, Chavez has his capitalist cronies just like Obama does, make the shortages worse by selling food in the black market at huge profits for themselves. What isn't lost to corruption is lost to government incompetence. Some 130,000 tons of food was left to rot on ships in Venezuela harbors because the bureaucrats could not arrange a profitable enough black market deal for themselves. When this was reported by one of the country's few remaining independent newspapers, Chavez was forced to arrest the head of his food police. His replacement is just as corrupt, according to local papers. Before Chavez, there was no black market in food. The stores were full of fresh produce and local meat. Now there are ration cards, and sad walks home with no food to be found. Why don't the people of Venezuela do something? They're trying. In the September 2010 parliamentary elections, voters overwhelmingly supported the opposition, which was called the Coalition for Democratic Unity. The coalition won half of the popular vote, and when they were sworn in on January 5, 2011, they controlled 40% of National Assembly seats, up from just 4% the year before. Other opposition parties grabbed another 10% of the seats. The opposition probably would have swept all electoral offices if it wasn't for Chavez's thugs, who might have taken lessons from the new Black Panther Party in Philadelphia during the 2008 elections here, openly intimidating voters and manufacturing fake ballots. But still, the people did the best they could and won working control of the national parliament. What was Chavez's response? He stole the parliament's power. Days before the opposition parties were set to be sworn in, Chavez asked the old parliament, where his United Socialist Party controlled 83% of the votes, to give him the dictatorial right to rule by decree until the 2012 presidential elections. They voted overwhelmingly in favor. Chavez only had to make announcements on television, and they became law. Forget elections, legislative debates. The maximum leader simply mumbles something on television, and it is law, and the parliament is powerless to stop him. After he received this dictatorial power, he bragged to a state-run newspaper that the newly elected opposition was now powerless. Let's see how they are going to make their laws now. With Chavez starving his country and mocking democracy, there can only be two results: more seizures of American property in Venezuela and more migrants slipping over our border. Again, Obama does nothing and says nothing. State Department spokesman Crowley managed only a lukewarm response. What he, Chavez, is doing here, we believe is, subverting the will of the Venezuela people. And that's it. Except for that stray remark by Crowley, you will find no response by the Obama administration. Pore over the transcripts of the State Department briefings and read all of its reports. You will find nothing. Not a single line that is critical of Chavez's takeover of democracy in Venezuela itself. Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Lehtinen, who is the chairwoman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, sees right through Obama's game. The president might act like he's not taking sides, but he is. And he is siding with a socialist dictator, rather than Americans who are losing their retirement money and Venezuelans who are losing their freedoms. Ross-Lehtinen was dead on when she said, "Choosing to take no side in the battle between tyranny and democracy in Venezuela only helps the tyrannical side." The good news is that Chavez will almost certainly be dead before the next election. His cancer, the cancer he claims has been cured, is accelerating, and his medical team gives him no more than 6 months to live. Apparently, the advanced treatment for the disease that he received in Cuba didn't do the trick. The only questions now are, will the Chavistas who support the dying dictator be able to hold on to the power and the wealth they have stolen from the Venezuelan people? And will Barack Obama intervene on behalf of those people to ensure that Venezuela becomes a free country again? My advice? Don't put any money on Obama coming through for the Venezuelan people. Brazil. I mentioned the Obama trip to Brazil in the previous chapter. When President Obama got invited to a summit meeting in Brazil, he decided to take the whole family. A little vacation in the sunshine, while icy rains fell on Washington in March 2011. Of course, that little trip cost taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. Why not? He felt completely at home with the Socialist Party leaders of that rainforest nation. They spend their days criticizing the United States in the halls of the United Nations and blaming America and the local newspapers for their problems, just like Obama. Once there, Obama announced that U.S. taxpayers would loan the Brazilian oil giant Petrobras some $2 billion to drill for oil off their coast in the deep waters of the Atlantic. As I've told you, he backed that up with a promise that America would be Brazil's customer for the oil they produce. Of course, the president has blocked American oil companies from drilling in a number of offshore areas and in many inland oil fields. Obama's drilling moratorium costs the American economy some 100,000 jobs and billions in revenue per year, according to the American Petroleum Institute. That might be the reason he promised that America would be Brazil's best customer. When he got back to the States, Obama whined about America's dependence on foreign oil imports, the very ones he had just agreed to subsidize in Brazil with our tax dollars. I have a lot more to say about Obama's energy edicts in Chapter 9, Tyranny of Green Energy. Our New Enemies. Government brutality is a fact of life in the Middle East. It doesn't matter whether it's an Islamist dictator like Iran's Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, or an old-fashioned third-world tyrant like Hosni Mubarak or Muammar Gaddafi. Middle Eastern countries have, since World War II, generally been held together by force. Now that the Obama administration has found a principle, responsibility to protect, to stand on, it has a rationale for extending its policy of reducing U.S. influence in the region by promoting the rise of Islamist governments of the people. It's the Soros doctrine at work. I'm the only one who saw what was really going on in the Middle East, as Barack Obama turned a blind eye to the violence of dictators against their citizens and supported the overthrow of U.S. allies in order to pave the way for the takeover of their countries by Islamist radicals. I'm the only one who understood that Obama was implementing his new foreign policy, the one that says, "Our former friends are now our enemies." It's the second part of Obama's new foreign policy doctrine.